How you doing, guys? Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com. I do a lot of selling of junk on either the internet and also locally with Facebook groups and a Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. And it's funny because there's this weird class of subhumans that permeate Marketplace for some reason that are just the most insane flakes of all time, where you'll have, the most common one is you'll have some people say, hey, is this still available? And I'll say yes within like 30 seconds, and then you never hear from them. Total ghost. But even more infuriating than them are the people who go through the whole process of like asking questions and say, cool, I'd like to get it. You set up a time, and they're like, all right, I'm ready to leave. So you tell them where, whether that's your address or where you want them to meet. And they say, I'll see you in however many minutes. Never hear from them again. And you're like waiting. And I was joking with my girlfriend. I was like, you know what? We should have some kind of social credit score to where these people could be like known that they're such degenerates. And that got me thinking about, because obviously I don't want any sort of social credit score in the United States, but it got me thinking about how the reason some of these control elements and tracking and everything that happens over the years, specifically technology, is so insidious is because a lot of these things are better. Like if I had the powers of, Superman or whatever, and had no concerns about my freedoms being infringed, a lot of these technologies and everything are better. Like the ability to like just tap your card or wave your hand over something to pay instead of having to carry cash around. Like that is better. It's more convenient. It's faster. Technology talking to your house, like, hey computer, do this for me, open the window, turn off the lights. Like that's all cool. It's better than having to do it yourself. It's certainly more convenient. So many of the, and it'd be really interesting to me to do one of those like DNA tests and see all that stuff. Like all that stuff is either interesting, better from a performance standpoint, certainly better from a convenience standpoint. In a lot of ways it might even be cheaper, but the element that exists because of human nature, and specifically because of the nature of the type of humans that end up in government, is that we know the risks associated with all that, giving away that much information, that much control over any aspect of your life. So we just can't do it. I don't want to do it. And but the reason everyone else, it's so hard to stop, is because everyone else does want to do it, because it is in a lot of ways better. A lot of these technologies are awesome. And if I had no concern over freedom, I would want to be utilizing all this. I would want things to be way more streamlined, way more efficient, way more convenient. But a lot of them I'm going to have nothing to do with, because I know exactly how it's going to be abused. And it's not even a question of if, it's an absolute certainty that at some level this stuff will happen. We see what they're doing with social credit scores, even the proto versions in China. We've seen already what they do over here with, smart thermostats being controlled and shut off for load shedding. We see that what they do with the information from the DNA tests, even from stuff like Ring cameras, and some of that can be mitigated. Like I don't think it's necessarily you shouldn't have any cameras, but realize that these companies are going to give away the information with no warrant to the government if the government isn't already in there, like the NSA, and that they absolutely know everything that you're doing just from using phones and computers and whatever. So, but just like with the phone, this technology is super useful, super convenient. It'd be like, using a horse instead of a car a lot of times, simply because we didn't want the car to be tracked. And some of us are going to have to do that just because we know of how likely it is to be abused and how profoundly it's going to be abused when it happens. But it does make it like impossible to stop, because I've said before about one of the flaws with, especially like anarchists but even libertarians, is this idea that the natural state of the world of humanity is a state of freedom, and that's being fucked up by a few, bad actors. When the reality is the vast majority of humans, somewhere like 75 to I would say 90%, aren't willing to they don't care about freedom as just an idea when it requires sacrifices or giving up or making concessions. They want the freedom to do the things that they care about, but beyond that, they don't care if they're in a cage, if the places outside the cage are somewhere that they don't think they would want to go. And so that is the truth. That's why anarchy and even libertarianism, when taken to its extreme, don't work, because most people, even if they're not like a bandit, to use the term from like a game theory perspective, they still don't care about freedom, and certainly aren't willing to fight for it, for your freedom, rarely even for their own if it's not something extreme. They're more willing to fight for their comforts than they are for their freedoms. And that's why these things are so unstoppable. But it isn't because that this stuff is bad. You know, it's hard to fight because it's useful. And, you know, I don't have the answer, but that's just something to think about when you're going through the process of, you know, maybe having to avoid it for yourself, or certainly trying to convince someone else of why these things are dangerous. Don't approach it from the perspective of telling them why this stuff sucks, because in a lot of times it doesn't suck. Instead, show them how this is constantly being abused, and so they'll at least be wary, or at least, you know, try to find some protections or alternatives for that sort of thing. So let me know what you guys think. And so in the meantime, even though that stuff is super useful, I won't be giving up my cash or signing up for too many computerized house controls anytime soon. But it would be nice, you know, if I didn't have to worry about that. I wouldn't mind having a robot butler. And remember that no matter how draconian they get, you are guaranteed to not die and shit hit the fan if you buy the Rule of the Wasteland Survival Fishing Kits in a deluxe and now micro version. The micro version is brand new. It's only been out about a week. Only weighs about 55 grams, fits in the palm of your hand with all the essentials you need to catch fish in a survival situation. And lest we all forget, speaking of heroes of freedom, who can forget Marvin Humeyer, maker of the Killdozer. Killdozer Day is coming up June 4th. June 4th, 2004 is when Lord Marvin destroyed Granby, Colorado with his armored death machine. You can commemorate by buying shirts at rulethewasteland.com. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.